Welcome to Inside Insights, your quick hit of tips, tools, and trends for manufacturing, distribution, and Dynamics 365 Business Central. Brought to you by InsightWorks.
Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm really glad you could join us. Today, our mission is to explore something that affects a lot of businesses, which is the hidden friction in retail and trade desk operations.
Yeah, that friction that you don't really see until you're right in the middle of it.
Exactly. And we're specifically looking at some source material around Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, which is, this incredibly powerful enterprise resource planning system, an ERP.
Right, a massive, massive back-end system.
But we're looking at why these giant systems often fail spectacularly at the actual checkout counter and, how to fix it.
It's a huge problem. You have this system that tracks global supply chains, balances massive ledgers, processes millions of data points.
Oh, and it costs a small fortune, right?
Oh, absolutely. A huge investment. But then you walk out to the checkout counter, and it all just grinds to a halt.
Yeah. I mean, imagine for a second that you run a busy trade desk. Picture a parts counter at a high-volume industrial supply store.
I can picture it now.
The phones are ringing, right? There is a line of, 6 contractors tapping their steel-toed boots against the floor, and they all just need to get back to their job sites.
And they are not happy about waiting.
Not at all. So you have this massive ERP in the back, but your staff up front is visibly frustrated. The line is barely moving. And even worse, you look at the reporting later on, and your inventory numbers are just constantly inexplicably wrong. Why is this happening?
Well, you're looking at a system that was basically engineered for total global visibility, right? But it's failing spectacularly at the simple act of handing a customer a wrench and taking their cash.
Right, just a basic transaction.
Exactly. And the structural flaw here really comes down to how businesses traditionally build their retail software stack.
Yeah.
The core problem, according to our sources, boils down to 2 words: bolted on.
Okay, bolted on. Let's unpack this, because that's the reality for so many of these operations.
Yeah, they buy the massive ERP for the back office, but they treat the actual point of sale, the POS, as kind of an afterthought.
Right.
Because generic POS platforms, they're designed to stand entirely alone. They have their own proprietary databases, their own logic for how a transaction should be recorded, and their own item ledgers.
So it's basically a separate brain.
Exactly. So when a business tries to connect that standalone POS to a really complex, powerful ERP like Business Central, they have to bolt the 2 systems together.
Using, third-party connectors?
Right. And that translation layer is incredibly fragile. It inevitably requires duplicate data entry or really expensive custom integrations just to force the 2 to talk.
It's I was thinking about this, it's like putting a Formula One engine in a golf cart.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right, because the back end has this incredible power, but the front end, the golf cart part, just wasn't built to translate that power to the actual terrain of a busy checkout line.
Yeah, the intelligence is there in the building, but that translation layer is completely destroying the execution. And, the businesses that actually win in this space, they reject that architecture entirely.
They insist on something different.
Yeah, they mandate a native POS solution, meaning one that is built directly inside the Business Central environment itself. Not bolted on, but built in.
Built in. Okay, so that translation layer analogy actually brings up, I think, the most dangerous vulnerability in this entire setup.
Oh, for sure. The data flow.
Right. If we want to understand why the line is out the door and the inventory is a mess, we have to talk about what's known as the sink trap.
The sink trap.
Yeah.
This is where the real disaster happens. Because when your master inventory lives in the ERP, but your daily minute-by-minute sales happen in a separate POS system, you're entirely reliant on batch sync cycles.
Meaning you have to wait for the 2 separate databases to basically catch up with each other?
Exactly. You have this thing called a sync interval.
Okay, let's play this out in the real world. So picture a customer walking up to your counter asking for a highly specific, very expensive electrical transformer.
Okay, sure. The staff checks the POS screen, and that standalone database says, yes, we have one left in the building.
Awesome. So the staff member turns around, walks to the back, grabs the part, and starts ringing it up.
Right, but in the background, a massive problem is unfolding.
Because the POS record the cashier was looking at and the actual Business Central item ledger, they were not perfectly aligned in real time.
Exactly. The POS thought the item was there because the last batch sync happened, say, 10 minutes ago. And in that 10-minute gap, an online buyer on your company's e-commerce site, which is plugged directly into the ERP, purchase that exact same final transformer.
Oh, wow. So the guy at the counter is thrilled, his credit card gets charged, but then what happens?
Well, when the standalone POS finally tries to push that transaction back to the ERP rejects it.
Or your inventory count suddenly dropped to -1.
Right. You've basically sold a ghost. You sold ghost inventory.
Which leads to massive customer disappointment, chaotic fulfillment scrambles, and your inventory accuracy is just completely ruined.
It's a mess. And the structural solution to this, according to the sources like using tools specifically designed for this, such as counter sales from InsightWorks, is to deploy a system that writes directly to Business Central's native ledgers.
So no translation layer at all.
Zero. There's no waiting for a batch sync to fire. When the barcode is scanned at the register and the payment is taken, the ERP's core database is updated at that exact millisecond.
The sale and the inventory movement become the exact same transaction.
Exactly.
Wait, let me push back on this a little bit, because a lot of modern POS vendors claim their systems sync every few minutes now, like maybe every 5 minutes.
Right, they do.
Is a 5-minute delay actually breaking things at the counter, or are we kind of splitting hairs here? Like, is that 5-minute window truly a danger zone?
Well, think about it from the perspective of a really busy operation. If you manage multiple locations, or maybe you operate a shared distribution warehouse that feeds retail counters, B2B reps, and a website all at once.
Yeah, that's a lot going on.
5 minutes is an absolute eternity. Dozens of transactions can occur in 300 seconds. So allowing any sync delay at all is just a massive liability.
It's like reading yesterday's newspaper to trade today's stocks.
Oh, wow. Yes. That's exactly what it's like.
You're acting on information that is already dead. You just don't know it yet. And you're making financial commitments based on this phantom reality.
Right. So if you're evaluating software for a complex supply chain, you have to ask vendors a critical question. Does the inventory update at the point of transaction posting, or is there a batch sync?
You absolutely require a single version of the truth.
If there is any sync interval at all, you're intentionally opening the door to ghost inventory.
Okay, so let's assume we've solved the data flow. The back end is instantly posting, no more batch delays, single version of the truth, ghost inventory is gone.
Perfect.
But once that's fixed, we actually expose a completely different problem.
We do, the human element.
Right, because perfect, real-time data in the back end is completely useless if the salesperson behind the counter is fumbling with a dense, confusing interface while that line of contractors gets more and more angry.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is when you look at the underlying design philosophy of these massive ERPs.
Who were they actually built for?
Exactly. Business Central's native interfaces were designed for desktop use, keyboard and mouse.
Right. Sitting at a quiet desk in a climate-controlled office.
They were built for accountants, data analysts, procurement officers who have the time to carefully tab through complex data fields.
They were absolutely not built for a fast-moving trade desk staff dealing with a chaotic physical environment. You know, someone's returning a greasy hydraulic pump while someone else is yelling about 20 boxes of screws.
Yeah, you can't be tabbing through accounting fields in that scenario.
It's like asking a fast food cashier to use a complex Excel spreadsheet to ring up a burger.
Yes.
Hold on, sir. Let me just tab over cell D14, input your extra pickles, then I'll write a quick macro for your fries.
It's absurd. The friction is insane. It completely paralyzes the operation. If you take a standard Business Central sales order screen and simply put it on a tablet at the checkout counter, the design fails.
Because the buttons are too small.
The buttons are far too small for quick tapping. The forms are too dense with irrelevant accounting fields. The navigation menus are hidden behind multiple clicks.
Or they require obscure keyboard shortcuts that a newly hired cashier is never going to memorize.
Right. So a true POS interface must be touch optimized. This isn't just a nice to have.
It's the dividing line between a tool staff will actually use confidently and one they will actively try to work around.
Completely. A touch optimized interface means fundamentally redesigning how the human interacts with the machine. Large tap targets, simplified order entry, and incredibly fast item searches.
So staff can look up a part by its item number, its description, a manufacturer barcode, or even a cross-reference code from a competitor.
And they must be able to complete the entire transaction without navigating between multiple pages, just one simple screen.
And we also have to talk about barcode scanning, right? Because the source mentions that scanning directly into the active order line eliminates typing errors and just vastly speeds up checkout.
Oh, absolutely. Because if a trade desk worker has to manually type in a 14-digit alphanumeric part number for every single item.
Human error isn't just a possibility, it is a statistical guarantee.
It really is. And consider the cascading effect of that single typing error. A slip finger means the wrong part is deducted from your inventory.
Oh, man. Which instantly creates two inaccurate stock counts.
Exactly. It means the wrong price is charged, throwing off your revenue. The data is corrupted at the moment of entry.
And because we fixed the sync trap, that corrupted data is instantly written into the ERP's permanent ledger.
Right. The speed becomes a weapon against you if the interface is bad. And here's the other thing. If a system is too difficult to use, human beings will naturally invent their own shadow processes to bypass the friction.
Oh, I've seen this. A cashier who hates the interface will just write the part numbers down on a sticky note to enter later when the line dies down.
Yep. They let the contractor walk out with the items.
And suddenly, your flawless real-time inventory system is defeated by a piece of yellow paper. You're back to selling ghost parts for the next 3 hours.
Which is why specialized solutions, when deployed properly, provide a touch-first order screen built specifically for the psychology of the salesperson. But crucially, because it's native, it still feeds the accountant's complex database perfectly in the background.
The salesperson just never sees all that complexity.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've eliminated the ghost inventory and we've simplified the physical checkout screen. The line is finally moving.
It is.
But at the end of the day, what happens to the physical cash? Because tracking the money is kind of the final piece of this puzzle.
It really is the ultimate operational bottleneck. Without ERP integrated cash management, businesses are forced to rely on manual, paper-based till management.
Which is just inherently chaotic. Think about the physical reality of a busy cash drawer throughout a 10-hour shift.
It's crazy. You have an opening float of change that is often just, assumed rather than properly tracked.
Right, or you have those mid-shift skims, like when the drawer gets too full of large bills and the floor manager takes a handful of cash to the back, safe for security.
And in a disconnected system, those skims are often done really informally, maybe documented with a quick note scribbled on the back of a receipt paper and stuffed under the coin tray.
Oh, I've definitely done that in my retail days.
We all have, but it guarantees that the next morning, someone in the accounting department is sitting at a desk with a magnifying glass, trying to decipher these scribbles.
Trying to figure out why register number 3 is mysteriously short by $42.
And investigating those discrepancies takes hours of expensive administrative time every single week, calling the shift manager, reviewing security footage. It's a nightmare.
So what's the source's solution here?
The solution is handling all cash workflows directly within the ERP itself. The opening float entry, the mid-shift skims, the final drawer counts.
All of it happening within that native interface.
Yes. Generating an automatic end-of-day reconciliation report. Solutions like counter sales include this directly in Business Central, which turns floats into native ledger entries.
Wait, let me challenge this concept for a second. Here's where it gets really interesting to me.
Okay, go ahead.
If we are taking all of this strict accounting reconciliation, all these ledgers and reports, and we are demanding that it happens directly on the checkout screen, aren't we just shifting the burden of accounting onto the busy cashier?
Right, that's a common fear.
Because we just spent 10 minutes talking about simplifying their screen so they can just scan things and go, and now we're asking a 20-year-old cashier to run complex ledger balancing at 5 o'clock on a Friday. They just want to lock the doors and go home.
It sounds like it would add friction, I know. But it actually simplifies the cashier's job immensely. It does the complete opposite of what you'd think.
How so?
By capturing the data natively at the point of sale, you isolate the cashier from the accounting logic. All the cashier has to do is input exactly what they physically hold in their hands.
Like just counting the paper.
Exactly. They tell the screen, I have 5 $20 bills and 10 rolls of quarters. That is the extent of their job. Because the POS is operating directly inside Business Central, the ERP takes that raw physical count and automatically maps it against the expected ledger entries.
Ah.
It does all the math in the background. The cashier isn't figuring out if they are over or under. The ERP is just saying, received. That matches our internal ledger.
Oh, wow. Okay, that makes sense.
And this introduces one of the most powerful benefits for the finance team. It's called dimensions-based reporting.
Dimension?
Yeah, in Business Central, dimensions are basically highly specific data tags. Because the checkout system is natively built in, every transaction, every return, every cash drop is automatically tagged with these dimensions.
Like tagging the register number or the specific store location?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or the department, or even the individual salesperson logged into that till.
I can see how that changes everything for the back office. If a finance director is looking at a dashboard on a Tuesday morning and they want to figure out why a specific cashier seems to constantly have cash discrepancies.
They don't have to task an analyst with building a custom report, pulling from 3 different standalone databases. They just filter by those dimension tags without having to build anything new.
The data is already sliced and organized by the time they take their first sip of coffee.
Exactly. It completely bridges the gap. The cashier gets a fast, simple interface to close out their till and go home, and the accountant gets perfect, dimension-tagged ledger entries ready for auditing. No scrap paper required.
So what does this all mean? We started by looking at this massive gap between a powerful back-end ERP and the chaotic reality of a busy checkout counter.
Right.
And what becomes really clear is that the right retail solution for Business Central isn't necessarily the one with the flashiest marketing or the most bells and whistles.
No, not at all.
It's the one that solves operational bottlenecks without creating new ones in the process. We've really hit on 3 core pillars today.
Yep. 3 main takeaways.
First, real-time native inventory posting, completely eliminating the sync trap so you have a single version of truth. Second, a touch-optimized UI for salespeople so they can work fast without inventing shadow processes. And third, integrated cash till management, tracking money seamlessly from the drawer to the general ledger.
Exactly. And why this matters for you, the listener. Whether you are an IT director actively evaluating an enterprise tech stack for a national supply chain, or maybe you're just intensely curious about why your local auto parts store runs the way it does.
Right.
The underlying lesson here is universal across business operations. Deeply integrated tools will always outperform loosely bolted-on fixes.
Every single time.
And when you try to staple 2 completely different logic systems together with fragile connectors, you will always pay the price in speed, accuracy, and human frustration.
Yeah, the closer you can get the point of action, the sale, to the core source of truth, the ERP, the more resilient the enterprise becomes. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Oh.
It's something I noticed, a little quirk in the source text. The author's introduction promised to break down the 4 most critical requirements for a POS.
Oh, yeah, I noticed that too.
But then the article only detailed 3. And later it states the solution covers all 3 requirements above.
You lost track of their own cat.
They did. But it got me thinking, what if there is an unspoken 4th requirement? What if that 4th pillar is actually adaptability?
Adaptability, I like that.
Right, because we've talked extensively about perfect software integration. We can flawlessly align the item ledgers to update in milliseconds. We can install massive, beautiful touchscreens. We can automate the cash flow reconciliation so the accountants are happy.
But there is a human element.
Exactly, the human element of change management. No amount of perfect code can solve that. You can roll out the most perfectly native ERP integration on the planet, but how much does the actual culture of the trade desk staff dictate the success of the new system?
Their ingrained habits, their resistance to new workflows.
Yeah, their stubbornness to let go of that old standalone system they used for 10 years. If the frontline people simply refuse to adapt, does any of that back-end perfection even matter?
Software can optimize a business, but culture still eats strategy for breakfast.
It really does. Something to think about the next time you're standing in line at a parts counter and wondering why the system is so slow. Until next time, keep digging deep.